afternoon. You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Linda Tamim, and these are today's top stories. Thousands catch a glimpse of a rare solar eclipse of varying degrees visible across most of Europe, Northern Africa, Central Asia, and the Middle East. Over 50 people are killed and dozens are wounded in triple suicide bombings at mosques in the Yemeni capital, Sana'a, attended by Shiite Houthi militiamen who have seized control of the city. And the UN Security Council warns that recent violence along Lebanon's border with Israel and the presence of unauthorized arms in the UN buffer zone pose a risk of a new conflict. Onlookers were gazing at the skies as Lebanon witnessed a partial eclipse that was not clearly visible to sight in much of Lebanon's regions because of the cloudy weather that prevailed. The eclipse started at around 10:45 a.m. Beirut time and lasted for a couple of hours. Die-hard eclipse junkies descended on the Faroe Islands, a Danish autonomous territory, and Norway's Arctic Svalbard archipelago to catch a glimpse of a total solar eclipse with rare but spectacular views. The eclipse was observed for less than 3 minutes of daytime darkness, a phenomenon that has fascinated mankind since the beginning of time. The eclipse was also visible across most of Europe, Northern Africa, Central Asia, and the Middle East. 55 people have been killed and dozens were wounded in triple suicide bombings in mosques in the Yemeni capital, attended by Shiite Houthi militiamen who have seized control of the city. Witnesses say one bomb exploded inside Badr Mosque in southern Sana'a and was followed by another at the gate as worshippers fled. The third suicide bomber targeted Al-Hashahush Mosque in northern Sana'a. The Houthi militia's Al Masira television said hospitals in the capital had made urgent appeals for blood donations. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack. The UN Security Council has warned that recent violence along Lebanon's border with Israel and the presence of unauthorized arms in a UN buffer zone pose a risk of new conflict. In a presidential statement approved by all 15 members, the Council urged all parties to exercise maximum calm and restraint and refrain from any action of rhetoric that could jeopardize the cessation of hostilities or destabilize the region. The Security Council also expressed concern at other border violations, including the presence of extremist groups in Lebanese territory. It condemned terrorist attacks in Lebanon, including hostage-taking by ISIS and the Nusra Front. The Council warned that the deepening involvement of some Lebanese parties in the fighting in Syria also poses a risk for Lebanon's stability, without referring to Hezbollah. Council members criticized incursions, abductions, and arms trafficking across the Lebanese-Syrian border and said continuing cross-border fire and shelling from Syria into Lebanon has killed and injured Lebanese civilians. The Security Council also said that assistance to Lebanon was of paramount importance and urged Lebanese leaders to quickly end a 10-month stalemate over the election of a new president. The Special Tribunal for Lebanon has resumed a session to hear the testimony of MP Ghazi Youssef, who indicated that the intensified meetings held between late former Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri and Hezbollah aimed to talk the party into Hariri's way of ruling. 2 or 3 weeks before Hariri's assassination, there was distance between him and Hezbollah over the polls, the lawmaker said. Hariri wanted the country to be run by Lebanon and to be on good terms with Syria, he added. The tribunal later adjourned the session, whereby it is set to hear the testimony of MP Fuad Sanyura as of Monday. Lebanon's health ministry has announced it has recovered $2.51 million from 2 North Lebanon hospitals after uncovering fake healthcare bills. The ministry said in a statement that the billing fraud dates back to 2013 and was linked to Dr. Omar Sabrouh at the Saida Hospital in Zgharta and the Islamic Hospital in Tripoli. The statement said the ministry will recover more lost money from other Lebanon hospitals, including Tripoli's Az-Zahra. Authorities have seized 30 boxes of radioactive maxi pads that had arrived at Beirut's airport. A source at the airport said electronic scanners at the Customs Department detected 554 kilograms of not-so-sanitary pads that had arrived in Beirut from Dubai. A specialized judiciary launched an investigation into the case, and the source said more tests will be carried out to measure the levels of radioactivity. The discovery was the latest in a series of radioactive materials discovered at Beirut's airport and seaport amid an ongoing crackdown on radioactive imports. And a French court says nearly 300 works by Pablo Picasso must be returned to the family of the late artists, rejecting a testimony from a retired Picasso employee who said the Spaniard's last wife gifted them to him over 50 years ago. That's coming up right next. Welcome back. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and his Iranian counterpart Mohammad Javad Zarif have met for a fifth day of talks in Lausanne, Switzerland, aimed at reaching a political deal that will set the stage for a landmark nuclear agreement. Zarif has been in intense discussions with Kerry in the Swiss lakeside city since Sunday to seek an agreement to curb Iran's most sensitive nuclear activities for at least 10 years in exchange for a gradual end to sanctions on Tehran, as the March 31st deadline to reach a political framework deal is looming large. But negotiators say it is unlikely the end of March deadline for the framework agreement between Iran and 6 major powers will be met due to Tehran's failure to compromise. On another note, U.S. President Barack Obama, in a message to Iran's people and leaders, says this year represents the best opportunity in decades to pursue a different relationship between their two countries.
This year we have the best opportunity in decades to pursue a different future between our countries. My message to you, the people of Iran, is that together we have to speak up for the future we seek. As I've said many times before, I believe that our countries should be able to resolve this issue peacefully with diplomacy. This is what's at stake today, and this moment may not come again soon. I believe that our nations have a historic opportunity to resolve this issue peacefully, an opportunity we should not miss. As the poet Hafez wrote, "It is early spring. Try to be joyful in your heart."
EU leaders said they will discuss the attack in Tunis that left many European tourists dead and how unrest in neighboring Libya threatens broader European security. ISIS claimed responsibility for Wednesday's attack that left 21 people dead, including 2 Spaniards, a British woman, a Belgian woman, 2 French, a Pole, and an Italian. Authorities said the 2 gunmen involved in the attack on the Tunis Museum trained at a militant camp in Libya, where Islamic State and other jihadist groups were present. The 28 European Union leaders were expected to take up proposals already approved by their foreign ministers to prepare a possible EU security mission in Libya once the country's warring factions agree on a national unity government. EU Foreign Affairs Chief Federica Mogherini has pressed hard on the issue, highlighting the threats of ISIS gaining a foothold in Libya and an even bigger exodus of illegal immigrants. Russia proposed a UN Security Council draft resolution asking Kiev to immediately start consultations with pro-Russian separatists on elections within their eastern Ukraine strongholds. The Russian text cites a paragraph from a February peace accord which provides for discussion and agreement on questions related to local elections in certain areas of the Donetsk and Lugansk regions. The Russian proposal comes after Ukraine ratified 2 bills for greater autonomy in its troubled rebel-held east, where 11 months of fighting between the Russian-backed separatists and Ukrainian government forces have killed more than 6,000 people. Russia argues that the Ukrainian legislation is not in line with the February peace deal aimed at ending the regional fighting, and objects to Kiev's requirement that before winning autonomy, the separatists must hold local elections under Ukrainian law. Moving on to Australia, a Sydney cafe that was the site of a deadly siege has reopened, with customers queuing down the street to be among the first inside. The Lind Cafe's reopening comes 3 months after gunman Man Moniz, an Iranian-born self-styled cleric, took 18 people inside the cafe hostage. The standoff ended after police stormed the cafe in a barrage of gunfire, killing Moniz. 2 hostages were also killed during the siege. Cafe worker Joel Herat, who survived the siege, was behind the counter when the doors reopened, wearing his signature lint apron. Plaques honoring the 2 victims were also displayed on a wall inside the cafe. And Lint Australia's chief executive, Steve Luan, called the reopening a fresh start.
I mean, I was here a few days ago and I've been in numerous times even before this was refurbished and renovated, so I guess, not sure if it's guts, but again, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the staff here, and that's the important thing here.
And a day is this for you?
It's
the last 3 months have been, a very, very sad time for everybody, and it's been a sort of roller coaster of emotions. I mean, and that sadness doesn't go away. But today is like a fresh start for a lot of us, and really to get customers back in our store and see people smiling, and that's what we're about, is probably a fresh start for us.
Perfect. I think it's a fantastic idea that they actually opened it as soon as they could, straight away. It shows that we're resilient, and it shows that we're not going to stand for any extremist, terrorist ideology.
It feels fantastic. It's good to see that they were brave enough to reopen the store. It would have been devastating had they not done that. I think then they would have achieved what they wanted to achieve. But it was very disappointing to see that such a dangerous criminal was allowed to walk the streets for so long in a free country like Australia. It was absolutely disgusting.
A French court says nearly 300 works by Pablo Picasso must be returned to the family of the late artist, rejecting a testimony from a retired Picasso employee who said the Spaniard's last wife gifted them to him over 50 years ago. Pierre Le Guenec, 75, a retired electrician, and his wife Danielle, 71, were given a suspended sentence of 2 years in prison. They were also ordered to hand over the 271 works, estimated at between 60 and 120 million euros, to the heirs of Picasso, who died in 1973. Le Guenec, employed by Picasso in his last home in Mougins in southeast France, said Jacqueline Picasso offered him the box containing drawings, sketches, and other works as a gift, either in 1971 or 1972, with the consent of the husband. The box sat in Le Guenec's garage for nearly 40 years before the couple brought it to Paris to be appraised in 2010. After the discovery of the cash, Picasso's heirs contacted authorities, who opened an investigation. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. Thousands catch a glimpse of a rare solar eclipse of varying degrees visible across most of Europe, Northern Africa, Central Asia, and the Middle East. Over 50 people are killed and dozens are wounded in triple suicide bombings at mosques in the Yemeni capital, Sana'a, attended by Shiite Houthi militiamen who have seized control of the city. And the UN Security Council warns that recent violence along Lebanon's border with Israel and the presence of unauthorized arms in the UN buffer zone pose a risk of renewed conflict. Those are your headlines for today. I'm Linda Tamim, and I wish you all a very nice weekend.
سوريا تحيا حكمها ولد.
هو كله فاكرين اقل من كده.